starts now.
And we are live on the KTAR YouTube channel with the Wednesday edition of The War Room. Hey, let's meet our panel. We've got Democratic strategist Tony Cani. Good to see you back in the War Room, my friend.
Happy to be here.
All right. We've got former Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Look at this. My favorite governor.
My favorite governor.
Former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. Governor, it's great to see you. How are you?
Great to be here with you guys.
Thank you, Governor.
Great to have you back. So let's get into a lot of stuff that has happened. And why don't we start with ICE? I think we'll start with raids. I think we'll start with immigration. So the first question is, has Trump gone too far? And I'll give you a couple examples. ICE detained 2 people as kids were walking to a Phoenix school. There was a
2 of the adults that were walking.
2 adults,
kids, yeah.
right? 48-year-old landscaper working outside an IHOP in California. Masked agents tackled him to the ground. We had a raid on a farm. Worker died. Hundreds arrested. We seized a 6-year-old with cancer outside of an L.A. court. And yes, we've gotten violent criminals as well. But is Trump going too far when it comes to the raids and who he's trying to take off the street? Governor, why don't we start with you?
Thanks.
Throw you in the deep end, Gov.
Well, you know, I believe in ICE. I think they have a responsibility, and I believe in the rule of law. I think we all do. Some of them are here illegally. I worry about this kid issue that's taking place. I think that's going too far.
What kid issue? What specifically?
Well, about whether they're going into the schools, whether they're going into the schools and trying to identify children that are illegal.
For you, that's going too far.
That is going way too far. And
Do you think there should be places, we've heard schools, hospitals, and places of worship? Are those off limits? Or
I don't know, but I know about schools. And
Okay.
It's a case that was decided by the Supreme Court, and I think it was Pilar v. Doe.
Wow.
I'm not sure if you might know, but it ruled that you cannot deny undocumented children education in schools. So what are they going to do? They're going to go in there. No one knows who's illegal, who isn't. Mm-hmm. And so they don't know if they're illegal or not. No one's going to know. So why are they going to do that? It just seems absurd to me.
Sheriff, we've talked on this show before about the raids, about ICE masking themselves. You know, when you get the stories of what are you doing with the 6-year-old with cancer outside of an L.A. court, that's where it makes me shake my head. I've said before, if you came in under Biden, I think you should leave. I think we should deport you. You know, but if you're the Peoria sushi restaurant owner of 21 years, she's facing deportation. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. So is Trump going too far?
No, he's not going too far.
Okay.
Look, I hear all these stories, these like anecdote stories that the media uses to charge the opposite side. But the reality is that when they pull these people off the street, I promise you there was probably some history that they were looking for. In 8 years as a sheriff, I had people call me and say, "Sheriff, look at that, what happened?" And then I would look into it, and it was never one time what they told me it was. There was always a second side to the story. And what I know from law enforcement, if they're looking for somebody, pulling somebody off the street, they probably had a jacket on that guy, or maybe he's got charges. Do we know that? I don't know the specific of the case.
So how do you justify that? Let me use this as an example. The Home Depot raid. They show up in a Ryder truck, jump out, and start chasing everybody around the parking lot. Do you think they have a warrant for somebody there?
Well, let me tell you what. We've busted plenty of guys dealing drugs at a Circle K or a Home Depot. And if you get a tip or Home Depot themselves said, "Hey, we got a ton of them, and we think they're dealing drugs out here."
Yeah, but they weren't arresting him for drugs.
But I'm saying if you have Home Depot or somebody's reporting it, do you want them to ICE go, for the optics are really bad, we shouldn't show up?
I don't think we should worry about the optics. I think we should worry about the Constitution.
Well, then if we're not worried about the optics, then we should pick them all up because they're here illegally.
But there are, because I know that you've gone over this before, and I made a list. I made a list of people who are United States citizens that have been detained. And I went and I made sure that it was a list of people that weren't protesting and these kinds of things. And there are, I found, 10 of them. And these are people, one guy, he was working at an auto yard. I think it was Border Patrol comes in. He says, "Oh, I'm American, bro." They give him his real ID. They say, "We don't think that's a real ID." He was detained. They tell the reporters, actually, he assaulted an officer. video came out. That's not true. They're talking about somebody else. They released it. There's a family in Milwaukee. They were speaking Spanish in a
was
store.
he deported, though?
No.
Was that guy deported? Okay, so
But
then
your
justice...
constitutional rights are
but the
still violated
hold on,
when
justice,
that happens.
But
And
justice played out. You know how many times we pull traffic stops?
The issue here is if we are terrifying people...
Are you looking
who
for
are United
perfection?
States citizens. I am looking for constitutional rights to be protected.
Okay, and his
I think-
constitutional rights were upheld when they released him
You are
after
not-
they figured out whether he was here
So
illegally
you are
or
allowed to
not.
detain somebody?
We
You're allowed-
detain American citizens every day, Tony.
You're not supposed to detain. You are not
We
supposed to.
detain and arrest
A family
American
in Milwaukee
citizens.
was stopped because they were overheard speaking Spanish. ICE had to apologize.
So if
They were
there's-
all United States citizens. It took somebody from their family to show up at the detention center with their
Tony,
citizenship
your
papers.
argument is not
so
sound.
the burden of proof of your citizenship isn't your ID. There's examples of people showing their passport ID, and they were told they're a citizen. You know, like that they're not a citizen. Like, what is the burden?
So is
How
there
do
no
I
process that we get to figure it out? We get to go through and investigate. We detain citizens all the time, Tony. Your argument is not sound because basically you
I guess I
wanna-
have a higher expectation for the way United States citizens should be treated in this country. Because I'll tell you what, if this happened to a
So you
white
have-
family in Glendale or in Gilbert, my MAGA would be calling this
No, you wouldn't.
tyranny.
You wouldn't hear
if
about
it was
it.
about a mask, I would hear during COVID. I would hear people saying this is about taking away constitutional rights.
Tony,
But
if
when
it was a white
people-
family in Gilbert, you wouldn't even hear about it.
Well, that's probably
That's
true.
the
We know
truth.
about the Gilbert
Look,
Goons thing, right? So like
we
they
know
probably
that-
wouldn't have.
Look, the reality is, and I know, Tony, we always can find those outlying cases where somebody got caught up in it. There was 11 million people that got let into this country illegally. You don't want to focus on that. You want to focus on the 10 cases where we may or may not have got it right initially, but in the end, we get it right
But you're
because
asking,
they prove it.
You're asking people to prove that they're innocent without any
I don't like
proof
that
of
either.
guilt.
What
but
do
I
you
wasn't
want?
I'm like,
there
what
for
is the
that.
proof
What do you
of
I
guilt?
want?
wasn't there for those
Let's
cases.
get- let's get the governor in. Go ahead.
Do you want people to come into our country illegally? Is that what you are? You're
No, but I don't want.
legality of it?
I'm
There's
a
always
first
gonna be a
generation
hiccup
American.
here or
I'm a
there.
first generation American. My father was an immigrant from Italy.
Yeah.
And I don't want just because he doesn't look a certain way or doesn't speak English to be detained
But I
and to
think
be
that
questioned.
You're
I mean, there was
assuming
somebody
that,
with-
Tony. You're
But we
assuming
still have
that,
the
and I
rule of law.
can't.
A lot
We
of
have
these
laws.
things-
We believe in the
We
law.
have the same thing.
You
with-
don't have to have any probable cause to stop
Yeah,
somebody.
what's your reasonable articulable suspicion that somebody's
ICE
in the
has
country
a different
illegally?
level of probable cause than
In
what
Milwaukee,
we
do they?
Okay, we have a certain level of probable cause on local law enforcement.
You can't just walk up to people
ICE
on the
has
street and say,
different
"Give me your ID. Are you in this
probable
country
What about a
illegally?"
grocery store in Milwaukee? That's
What's
not in
the
the border
premise
zone,
behind
is
it? You're just throwing this out there, and there's so much
Well,
behind
because
the premise
the
of this.
reason I'm
What's
throwing it
the
out there
premise?
is because I know that you have
They
previously
didn't
thrown out
just
that
show
this
up,
isn't true.
but they didn't just show up to the grocery store and go, "Hey, who's in here that doesn't look like they belong here?" That's
Well,
not
then
what's
how are
going
they
on.
This is an
determining? But that's my
example
point.
where
How are
ICE
they determining
apologized.
who's in this country illegally?
One at a time.
They determined it with what Tony said, and Tony doesn't like it. So, like, yes, there is going to have to be a determination process.
When they show up at the Home Depot
And
and,
the guy
they chase
says-
the Hispanic people
And the
around the
guy-
parking
but
lot,
I guarantee
what
you-
is your probable cause that they are in this country illegally?
I'll tell you one thing, just aside from all this, talk about the politics of this for a second. There are
Last word, Tony.
There are a group of Republicans who are really double down on this. I have seen focus groups. I have seen polling. I have seen the reaction to that the governor had, that Tom Horn had. People in America of all political parties believe this has gone too far.
Okay. All right. First part of the war room. We're coming up with, let's see, we got former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. We've got former Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, and that is Tony Cani, Democratic strategist. In our next segment, has a dark horse candidate entered the race
Dun, dun, dun.
for Arizona governor? We're going to talk about it on the war room. Stick around.
Has a dark horse candidate suddenly jumped into the race for Arizona governor? It is being reported that Representative David Schweikert is considering running for governor as a Republican. How much merit, how much do you put into that, Governor? Do you like him? Do you like him? Would he be better than Andy Biggs? Would he be better than Karen Taylor Robeson?
I served with David in the House of Representatives,
Yeah.
and and he was very bright, very smart, nerd. I mean, really.
fair enough. Yeah, he's a numbers nerd, isn't
He's
he?
a numbers nerd.
Yeah.
I mean, drove us all crazy, and paper everywhere.
A
You know?
long-time representative.
Yeah, But I don't think we need another person jumping into the race. And I don't know who says that he's going to jump into the race. He hasn't come out and said that he's going to run in the race. I don't know why he would do that, because I don't think he could win the race in Arizona.
Oh,
why?
okay.
Why don't you think he could win?
He couldn't win the Republican nomination or the general.
Well, it would really mess up the Republican side of the election for sure, because we've got Karen Taylor Robson, who I support. I'll make that clear.
Yeah.
And of course, and then we've got Andy Biggs, who's out there, and pretty soon we divide, and who wins. Andy wins, and then we lose the general.
Ooh.
I mean, Schweikert's a numbers guy, right?
Yep.
And I think he's seeing his numbers in that congressional race.
Yeah.
He's deciding.
You
that,
mean his reelection?
Yeah, and I think that he decided that there might be a tough year coming up. He doesn't want to risk it. He's going to run for governor. But I think the other thing he's probably looking at is the fact that he sees that the two other Republican candidates are not as strong as some people like to say that they are.
See, I like Karen Taylor Robson, but I don't really recognize her lately.
Not this version.
No.
Well, that's because what version did you meet? I mean, I think that's the big question.
I can tell you, I'm probably the most recent candidate to
Yes,
run a
sir.
statewide race, and I can tell you, I think that Andy has the absolute best chance of winning the primary. I don't think anybody in the state knows who David Schweikert is. And I think he has a tough. I love David, and if he's listening, he is the numbers guy. I could list out the qualities of all three candidates. I'm just giving you my overall assessment, having been through the state and been to all these different Republican areas.
Outside of his district, people don't know who David Schweiker is.
Nobody would know who he is.
The governor's shaking her head. You think well, the sheriff says Biggs. You're thinking Karen Taylor Robson.
Well, I think that it's going to be a tough race, absolutely. But I think that Andy is just too far right for the people of the moderates here in the state of Arizona, and he can't win the general election. That's our problem.
But that's been the problem with Republican
Absolutely.
primaries
We
previously.
have to get our Republicans back in order, because people are not as far right as they think that these people think that they are. They want somebody with moderation.
Biggs wants to ban mail-in ballots because Trump does now.
Right.
So he doesn't want that. He
Well,
thinks
I
the
mean,
election
but
was
Robson
stolen.
was in favor of Dreamers getting in-state tuition until Trump wasn't. So what ends up happening here, and I think that's the big problem that Robson
purity
faces,
test.
and I brought it up here before, which is the fact that I think she has a credibility problem. I think she has an authenticity problem. I think that people can see that she is calculating and changing her mind and changing her position.
I don't
I
think
think
there's
all candidates,
anything-
excuse me, I think all candidates change their mind because they learn along the path of election, and
So
candidates, they campaign.
Our
But
firm was involved in that
Karen
in the
is a
election.
real conservative Republican.
I
Born
don't
and
disagree.
bred.
Yeah, I don't think
Hard
I
as a whip,
would never
hard
argue that she
worker,
is
truth
moderate
teller.
ever.
Yeah.
And she just needs to get out there, and she needs to tell a
But
story.
do you,
and
do
she
you
needs to-
agree, Governor Brewer? And we've had Miss Robson in here. I've met her.
Right.
It comes across as slightly inauthentic when she's trying to quote unquote out MAGA Andy Biggs, because I don't think that's who she is.
Well,
It hasn't been-
I think she wants to make, she wants America to be first. She wants to make America great, and she's a Ronald Reagan Republican. She just probably doesn't agree 100% with everything, but Andy Biggs doesn't agree with everything either. He doesn't believe in more taxes and more spending, and look what he just did with the debt.
But a Ronald Reagan.
$15 trillion.
Ronald Reagan
debt,
Republicans
and he
get run
votes
out of
for
the
that
party
bill.
today.
And Robeson
Come
immediately
on.
put out a press release saying that she was in favor of that because Donald Trump was. You
But here's the
can't hear
thing.
her say any more than 6 words in a row without the word Trump
Sheriff?
coming out of her mouth.
Look, I've been all over the state.
Yes.
Karen Robeson is a great woman. She is going to have a extremely difficult time winning over the base, the Republican base throughout the state. I think Andy has the best chance to hit the ground, win the base. Who wins the general election? I still think he wins the general election, and I think a
How
lot
will
of it depends
independents
on.
Well,
Like,
having ran a statewide race
But
and
Governor, with all due
won
respect, it's been a few
overwhelmingly,
years. It's been a few
has,
years.
It has,
Yeah.
but I've been out there in the community, and it takes a lot of hard work.
And
you know?
and
And
this
I don't
last
think
8
that they
years with
realize that
Trump
there's
has really
certain areas.
changed how politics is in this state.
That's fair.
And I think that having been there, I can tell you what the appetite for the Republican Party is. And I think if she can get through the primary, it's a lot thing. But I think she's going to have a tough primary race. I think
Let me throw this
Andy
out.
Biggs connects with the
Independents
Republicans.
voting for Andy Biggs will be non-existent. Fact or false? Or
Say
true
that
or
again?
false?
False. I think it just.
Independents voting for Andy Biggs.
Never.
Is that it's not going to happen.
No.
No, I think it just depends on how he runs this race, and I think it really depends on where we're at on a national level with how President Trump is doing in the election.
Well, do you think
I think
that there's
that's what it
something
is.
to be said for the fact that Trump will not be on the ballot?
Trump is
And
always on the
It's going to be
ballot.
interesting.
Well, I'm just saying. And so will the Trump fans show up if
Well,
it's Andy
I
Biggs?
think there's
Speaking
one.
from experience, his endorsement hurts. It matters because in the end, that's what I think beat me in the primary. And I think we were running a great general race, and I think we had a plan that would have we were endearing to independents and some Democrats, and I think we would have done a good job.
I agree.
Man, she should have debated you, huh?
That would have been great.
All right, guys. Again,
Absolutely.
That's Sheriff Mark Lamb. We have Tony Cani. We've got Governor Brewer in the studio. Up next, the Department of Child Services allowed 3 children to be tortured and murdered under their watch this year alone. Now, Governor Brewer abolished CPS in 2014 when you were governor. Should Governor Hobbs do the same with DCS? We're talking about it next.
All right. Let's talk about the Department of Child Services.
Ugh.
I am so disgusted. I know that all of you are too, everybody listening. This story of Rebecca being tortured and murdered, and 15 calls from the school about this little girl to DCS. We've got 5 calls from the Phoenix Police Department about this little girl to DCS.
5 times they visited.
And nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And so, Governor, I'm glad that you're here, because in 2014, you said, CPS, we're done. Child Protective Services, the name changed to DCS. Can you tell us what the difference was and why you made that major announcement? I remember it just like it was the other day. Why get rid of CPS, and what did DCS do that was different?
Well, CPS wasn't doing their job. It
No.
was a big fat mess, and they were failing. Every time I turned around, there were issues, and it was just breaking my heart because I was getting a lot of information that some was public, some wasn't public, but they were failing our kids. And and then they became Arizona's kids. They became the foster kids,
Sure.
and then we were failing them at that issue.
There were 6,500 cases
was
that they
horrible.
admitted to not investigating.
And we had people working in the department that had been there for years and years and years, and I think they just became stale. They didn't care anymore. They were waiting for a retirement. I think they just let it go, and I just got fed up and furious. So the last year of my office, I blew it up. I took them out of DCS, thinking we put them in by themselves. That way they have more control of what they're doing. They have their own budget. They hire their own people. We can monitor it better, and we can see what's going on, and maybe that will make it better.
At this point now, does Governor Hobbs have to look at DCS and blow it up like you did CPS in 2014?
I think that she needs to go into CPS and actually really lower the boom and say, why is this happening? Why is this taking place? Now, I know that there's very dedicated CPS
I'm
workers
sure
over
there are.
there, and the cases you hear are horrific, but there certainly needs to be some horrible investigation of what is actually happening and taking place over there. We can't tolerate this. I mean, this is just horrible. And, it's not just the cases that we hear about. There's other cases
I'm sure
out
there are.
there. And they're Arizona's kids.
Oh.
They are. I always say they're Arizona. These are our kids. We're all responsible for these kids.
Sheriff Lamb, and just from a law enforcement perspective, because we're trying to understand some of this about how can police show up 5 times at the house? How can there be all these calls? Teachers at the school saying, well, we're seeing signs of abuse. The school resource officer, for goodness sakes, was involved in this. Is part of the problem that the goal is to keep families together more than it is to take kids out of the house? When you show up at a front door and a kid has a black eye, how does that work for law enforcement?
No, because they can become a nightmare for some family that just happens to have. We talked about it. Maybe your child, you have the unfortunate thing of losing a child to a drowning, and then they'll just ride you and make your life miserable at that point. We as police, we were very cautious with DCS because I felt like you would call them out when they needed to come out and they would do a terrible job, and we're back at those houses just like this situation.
Multiple times, yeah.
Or they're coming out and getting involved in situations where from a spouse who rats out another spouse, and now it becomes a nightmare for them. And there was no cause for it. So I think that they are all over the place. I'm not a big fan of it.
Okay.
I don't know what you do to revamp it because I'm not in that world, but I just don't think that they've done a good job. And then you've got foster system. I know people that were that have taken foster children in, and they make it miserable for them to the point where they're just like, look, I'm done. I'm not going to do the foster thing anymore.
DCS makes it miserable for them.
DCS makes it so difficult.
Give me an
for
example
people.
of how.
We have a dear friend who had a child that was there for a long time. In the end, they ended up giving it back to a criminal father who probably shouldn't have got the
That's
child
not true. They don't give it back to a criminal father. Come on. That is
She's
not
being
true.
facetious, people,
That
if they're
is not
listening.
true.
They just are not on the side of the children sometimes. And you put them in good families only for them to undo it.
Well,
The big issue is there's not enough money.
okay.
That's the bottom line, I think, that they need probably more money
Didn't
into
they
the
have
system.
a budget of billions of dollars?
Not billions, but they have
But
a
it
pretty,
was like
they have,
600 million or
they
something.
have a
It was
pretty
some
big budget.
astronomical
But
number.
they're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't take these kids out. But they've got to set a limit. The police go in there, and they go, but they tend not to want to take. They don't want to get involved with it. They'd rather call DCS and have them go out there and remove the kids and take them.
No, it's because,
and then
Governor,
they don't
it's
have
because we
enough.
don't have the authority
and then
to
they
take
don't
a kid
have.
out of a
I thought you had the authority to take a kid out if they have a black guy or
Because-
they're beaten.
And what
or,
we have to do is call DCS to do it.
you
And
can't.
then they
this
don't
is like-
have the
this seems like
facilities
this is the
to place
tension,
the kids in other
right? Like,
places too, and they have to have more parents and more people like you and me and everybody else that are willing to take these kids in the middle of the
Okay.
night because you don't have places to take them. But by God, somebody's got to do something because this is
Yeah.
horrendous.
But then they come into your home and they inspect your home nonstop, and then they
Well, but it
start
seems
looking
like
at
that's sort of what people were hoping would have happened in this situation, is that somebody would have come in and said, "This is an unsafe situation. We need to end this."
Nobody
this
really,
terrible
nobody really
circumstance."
cares.
Right? No,
Nobody really cares.
The child service to come
My
in and sort of,
son is the president and CEO of Hope in the Future, and it's a nonprofit organization for foster kids.
Okay.
He got involved because he cared.
Yeah.
He takes 750 kids to camp. He educates. He sends them scholarships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where are all the other people that ought to be contributing and taking care of these kids? A lot of them are in good, great, wonderful foster homes. Some of them, he has one kid that came up to camp that he was mentoring up there. 32 homes.
Oh, God.
32 foster homes in a year.
I don't know how we
In a
fix this.
year.
I mean, I think a lot of these like social safety net type things in Arizona are really under pressure right now for various reasons. We've seen it with like the sober living home situation where there's all this fraud, where people are taking advantage of people. We've seen it with the senior living home situation
yep.
where there's all this fraud. And this seems to be a different situation where it's not that people are taking advantage. There's this sort of tension about whether or not they can go in and do stuff. But I think
Like whose responsibility is it at the end of the day?
The challenge is, I think, when it comes to sort of like the money for the types of inspections, for the types of like services that might make sense, that budget, the budget is getting tighter and tighter and tighter.
I wonder if Governor Hobbs could suggest a different level of removing children, if it could be
Right.
higher or lower. But I think
Statutory changes.
Yeah. And make it so, because again, if you grab kids and they're not being abused,
Right.
then you've stolen their kids, and if you leave them and they get killed, then you've allowed it to
then you
happen.
screwed
It's
up.
a
Like I said,
terrible
it's a damned if you
situation.
do, damned if you
I get
don't
it.
situation. I don't want to
It
be
is.
in it, but
Wow. All right.
But
But these are tragedies. I mean, we
we
can't deny this. These are
But we as
tragedies.
responsible people too ought to be looking around and seeing what's going on. People turn a blind eye. You see it
Yeah.
all the time when you go shopping.
Well,
Let's
we're
not do that
looking now.
anymore.
We're
Yeah.
looking now.
It's true.
This is the KTAR and Arizona Sports Give-a-thon, presented by your Valley Hyundai dealers and Rye-Refi.
It's a give-a-thon/war room. 'Cause
There you go.
We've still got our War Room panel who is absolutely ready to talk about Phoenix Children's. And we're going to do that in a second. Become a champion of hope, $20 per month. A bear will be delivered in your name to a child at Phoenix Children's on the Train Teddy Bear Express.
Whoop, whoop.
And you will get your choice of a Cobblestone Auto Spa car wash or Better Buzz Coffee gift card.
All right. Hey, and thanks to all the amazing corporate partners in town right now. How about a special check presentation from the Arizona Building Supplies?
Hi, my name is Felisa representing Arizona Building Supply. We're excited to be a part of this year's Give-a-thon. We have been a proud partner of Phoenix Children's for 8 years. Therefore, we are honored to be able to present this check in the amount of $10,000. On behalf of Arizona Building Supply, thank you, Phoenix Children's, for providing world-class care and hope for kids and families when it matters the most. Every moment, big or small, makes a difference, and together, let's make every moment count. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very
There you
much,
go, 10
Arizona
grand.
Building Supplies. Thanks also to Madame E. Homes being a big part of this. And Panda Express is doing a triple match right now until 7 p.m. Every dollar.
Triple match.
Triple.
Now is the best time to call.
The best
602-933-4567.
Triple match. That's right. Give us a ring or text the word GIVE to 620-620. Every dollar donated tripled by our friends at Panda Express.
All right, so let's keep the music going. We've got our panel here.
Yes.
Former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, Democratic strategist Tony Cani, former Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb. It's the last segment of the War Room, but we're doing Give-a-thon all week. Stories of Phoenix Children's and why we're so lucky to have such a great hospital here. Why don't we start with you, Governor?
Well, the stories are just amazing what you hear about everybody that's gotten or have had patients or family in the Children's Hospital. And personally, I've had a family member of mine at Children's Hospital, and it was amazing the kind of care that they gave him, the staff, the people that were there. He wasn't afraid. He died, but he was not afraid. It was a terrible thing happening, but the care to the parents, to the family, to the children, is just amazing. And you see so much good stuff come out of there, and cures and people being helped. And now I'm proud to say that we have our Children's Hospital in the West Valley.
Yes.
You know,
We've
it's
got the
67th and Union Hills. And it's
got our satellite office out there, yeah.
Absolutely. And people just ought to really step up and share their money with with Children's Hospital.
You heard Governor
and make
Brewer.
it happen, because they do nothing but good work. And those people over there have wings. They're all angels. The people that are helping these kids are all angels.
Sheriff?
Yeah, my nephew had leukemia and was treated there and was cured successfully. And
that's wonderful.
Continues to do well. My granddaughter spent a little time there right after she was born. The worst things that we see in police in this profession, any cop will tell you, are the kids, the things involving children.
Yes, sir.
And to know that there's a place for children who are hurt in a car accident, heaven forbid, in their home, or whatever, that they get to go to a place that specializes in children, Phoenix Children's Hospital. So
602-933-4567. It's a triple match. Thanks to our friends at Panda Express. Triple match until 7. Tony?
Yeah, I mean, my mother-in-law worked there for her whole career as a social worker, and so I've heard so many stories about all the sort of good that they've done. But also just
God bless her.
with our daughter, we've gone for sort of routine stuff, and when you're there, you're just very aware of the fact that, you know, there are some people here who are probably having the worst day of their entire life.
Yeah.
But they're in really good hands. And you
the best
meet
place
these
they can
medical
be.
professionals who are coming from all over the country to work there, and then you have families that are coming from all over the country so they can get treatment there. And so we in Phoenix are just really lucky that we have it here, and so I'm glad that you guys do all this work and raise so much money
family.
for this.
Yeah. And we have this shining jewel right off the 51, right?
Yes.
Lit up at night. You
And
can
you
see it from
certainly know
everywhere.
it. Yeah, everybody does.
You
It's
can
there.
see it from
And
everywhere.
Gaydos, you're making me want some Beijing beef and some orange chicken. I do the half and half.
The Panda
Half
Express,
right.
okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
That's all
I was
in.
thinking that.
That's
All
me.
right.
See, I'm
With to me
saying
on
this
Panda
so that-
Express, I'm glad
like
my
orange
wife's not
chicken.
listening because she might say something about that.
All right, so the
And
Panda,
noodles.
Panda Express triple match until 7. 602-933-4567. When you become a champion of hope, we take a little bear and we put it on the train Teddy Bear Express. And it goes upstairs to a child. And that child will get to hug a bear.
And that child knows it came from you. Your name
right.
goes on the card attached to that bear. They know exactly who donated a bear to them.
So text the word GIVE to 620-620. Connie and Brewer and Lamb, they're all saying, listen, give a lot of money. Give a lot of money. And you can also call 602-933-4567 as the Give-a-thon is all week. Thank you guys for coming in.
Outstanding.
Awesome
you.
War Room. A lot of passion. That's exactly what the War Room is all about. Tony Cani. We have the former Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb and the governor, the former governor, the great state of Arizona, Jan Brewer. It's great to see all of you guys.
Thanks,
you.
man.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having us.
guys all.
We'll see you guys next time. That is the War Room.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gaydos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.